Hello, my dear students, and welcome back. I know, exam stress is getting real, but don't you worry, we are going to tackle this together. Today, we're jumping into a super interesting chapter, Politics of Planned Development. Have you ever wondered why our grandparents talk so much about those big dams and factories? Or why building a new highway today causes so much discussion? Well, by the end of this session, you'll get it all. So let's get you ready to score full marks.
Okay, let's start with these. Just look closely at these old postage stamps. See? We have massive dams, huge factories, new railway lines. Now, what do you think was India's biggest dream right after we got our freedom in 1947? Well, the answer, my friends, is hidden right here in these pictures. The dream was one single, powerful word: development. So, Section 1, the big challenge. Once the celebrations of freedom were over, our leaders had a giant to-do list in front of them. And the biggest thing on it? The economic development of India. We were a very, very poor country back then, and the challenge was immense. I mean, how do you lift millions and millions of people out of poverty and build a strong, modern nation for everyone? Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This word development, it's actually kind of tricky. It doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. Just think about it for a second. For a big industrialist, development might mean building a huge new factory. For someone living in a city, it might be about the new products that factory makes. But what about a tribal person living in the forest where that factory is going to be built? For them, it could mean losing their home, their land, their entire way of life. This slide shows that conflict perfectly. Let's take a real example from your textbook: the plan to set up the POSCO steel plant in Orissa. For the government, it was a golden opportunity, right? Foreign investment, thousands of new jobs. But for the local tribal villagers, it was a complete nightmare. They were terrified of losing their homes, their farms, everything. So you see, one person's development can be another person's destruction. So this brings us to our second section, the Great Debate. With so many different ideas of what development should be, the big question for India's leaders was, which path should we take? And this wasn't a simple choice, believe me. It led to a huge national debate about the very future of our country. Let's look at the main options they had. Now, to understand this debate, we need to quickly learn two simple terms you'll hear a lot: left and right. It's easy. As you can see, left-leaning people generally believe the government should take charge of the economy to help the poor and make sure things are fair. Right-leaning people, on the other hand, believe in a free market, with less government interference. At that time, there were two big models in the world. On one side, you had the capitalist model of America and Europe, which was all about private business and competition. And on the other side, there was the socialist model of the USSR, where the government controlled everything for the good of society. It's a key point to remember that many of our leaders, especially our first Prime Minister Nehru, were very impressed by that Soviet socialist model.
And this brings us to Section 3, India's Master Plan. So, after all the debates and discussions, what did India decide? Well, our leaders came to an agreement. Development was way too important to be left to private companies alone. The government had to take the lead. And their solution was a master plan for the whole country, the famous 5-year plans.
Just look at this. This is a real newspaper clipping from back then. It says, 5-year plan presented to Parliament. And look at that amount, 2,069 crores of rupees. That was a mind-boggling amount of money in 1951. You can almost feel the excitement and the hope that the entire country must have felt for this big plan. So, how did this whole planning thing actually work? Well, the process was quite simple, as you can see here. First, a really powerful body called the Planning Commission was set up, and the Prime Minister himself was its head. This commission would then create a detailed 5-year plan, deciding exactly how the government would spend its money for the next 5 years. Okay, now we're getting to the absolute heart of this chapter, Section 4, Plan 1 versus Plan 2. The first two 5-year plans were super important, but they had completely different strategies. Understanding this difference is absolutely crucial for your exams, so please pay close attention. Okay, I would definitely take a screenshot of this slide. It's a goldmine for your exam answers. Look, the first plan, which was led by the economist K.N. Raj, was all about agriculture. The motto was basically, hasten slowly. Let's be patient, build our dams, and fix our food problem first. But the second plan, led by P.C. Mahalanobis, was the total opposite. It was all about quick transformation, shifting the focus dramatically to heavy industries like steel plants. So, the really crucial point here is that the second plan wasn't just about economics. It was a big ideological statement. As the quote says, its goal was a socialist pattern of society. Now, in simple words, this just meant that the government would control all the big industries and push for rapid industrialization no matter what. This brings us to Section 5, our report card. So, after all this planning, how did India actually do? Well, just like any school report card, there were some good things and some not so good things, some hits and some misses. Let's take an honest look at the results. So, on the plus side, a really strong foundation for India's future was definitely laid. Huge projects like the Bokaro Dam were built. Nehru famously called them the temples of modern India. This groundwork was so important for future growth and eventually helped us solve our food shortages, leading to things like the wheat revolution you see on the stamp. But there was a big miss too. This cartoon from that time really captures the criticism perfectly. You can see a planner trying to jump over a huge gap, using centralized planning as his pole to reach village reality. The message was loud and clear. These grand plans, which were made in big city offices, often completely ignored the real problems of people in our villages. So, to sum up the main problems, trying to balance agriculture and industry was a huge headache. We also had to spend our precious foreign money to buy technology from other countries. Many people felt the plans had an urban bias, meaning they cared more about cities than villages. And the biggest irony? While we were building giant steel plants, food shortages were becoming a very real danger. All right, rock stars, let's switch gears. Welcome to Section 6, Exam Corner. Time for a super fast revision to lock in those marks. I'm going to shoot some typical exam questions from this chapter at you. Let's see if you were paying attention. Ready? First question, a classic one-marker. What was the main goal of the first 5-year plan? Come on, think back to that comparison slide. What was the main focus? And here is your perfect answer. The main goals were 1. To pull the economy out of that cycle of poverty. 2. A sharp focus on the agrarian sector. That means agriculture, dams, and irrigation. And 3. To carry out land reforms. Write these 3 points and you've got your full marks, guaranteed. Okay, next question. Super easy, but very, very important. Who was the main architect, the main brain, behind the second 5-year plan? The answer is P.C. Mahalanobis. Please remember this name. It comes up in exams all the time. P.C. Mahalanobis. Got it? Excellent! And finally, let's end with a question that goes a little beyond the textbook. You see, this chapter is history, but this whole debate is still happening right now. What happens when big development plans, like a new airport or factory, clash with the lives of the local people? Just remember that Orissa example. This question is at the very heart of the politics of development in India today. So think about it. All the best for your exams. I know you're going to do great.